Motion carries. Okay, consider approving resolution expressing strong opposition to the proposed leasing of public oyster reefs in Mississippi waters and in support of commercial fishermen from Pascagoula in their efforts to preserve the public right of all Mississippians to fish and harvest oysters on the natural oyster reef of the Mississippi Sound and the preservation of public access to our marine resources as requested by Alderman Kirk
Motion.
Kimball.
Second.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Senator Thompson, sir.
Yeah, Senator Thompson, would you like to speak?
Sure. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Torgerson. Thank you, members of the board. It is not my purview as the state senator for this area to interfere with local city business. I respect the work that each of you do. I represent 5 municipalities. It is certainly not my place to try to influence or in any way interfere with your business and the work that you do. As I think I've told each of you, maybe not Alderman Piernosh yet, but in my job as state senator, I want whatever my locals want. The last place I want to be is seen as interfering with municipal business. However, the resolution that was put on the agenda this evening, this afternoon, directly concerns state law, and not just a state law, but a bill that I am part authored or co-authored, and it's been part of an ongoing process before I got into the legislature. And the reality is that we've got a resource out there that has got some significant problems and some significant challenges. And one of those has been the loss of our oyster reefs, both the natural bottoms and other reefs in the Sound. Myself, along with other legislators, working with the department, working with oyster processors and people in the industry, have adopted a policy of privatizing some bottom lease areas. And it wasn't done in a vacuum. It wasn't done in a knee-jerk way. It was done because the resource has a real problem. If I could share with the board, this fast way to do this. This is a study from Mississippi State discussing the economic impact of our oyster population in the Sound.
Thank you.
This is historical harvest data published by the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources. And this is a map, also published by the department, of their reef assessment in the Western Sound, which is adjacent to Pascagoula, as well as areas and certain reefs that will be public even after this bill is put into effect. So on the first handout that I'm sharing with you is the Mississippi State's economic study on Mississippi's commercial oyster industry. You can see on the first page there the harvest numbers. They're naturally cyclical, right? They're up and down. But what we're seeing is the harvested amount is steadily declining, and the distance, the gap between those peaks is getting longer. It's taking the reefs longer and longer to recover from storms, from sediment, from freshwater, from the spillway, things like that. But what you also see is in 2019, and since 2019, the reefs haven't recovered at all. In 2019, I don't know how many folks remember, Bonnie Carey Spillway ran for about 187 days, inundated the Sound with fresh water and dirty river water, and effectively resulted in 100% mortality of the reefs. The second handout that I shared with you, from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, shows some of the challenges of getting public restoration dollars onto the reefs. You can see there, starting in 2005 with Hurricane Katrina, we had nothing. We had like 325 sacks harvested in 06-07 season, and then the money comes in for the department to start doing some work on the reefs. And then you can see that going on. We had the Deepwater Horizon spill in 2010 that resulted in the oyster reefs being closed for a prolonged period of time. We had a Bonnie Carey spillway opening in 11 that damaged the reefs, and we had additional spillway openings in 19, the prolonged opening that significantly hurt the reefs. All of those instances resulted in some funding coming to the department to maintain those reefs, but it takes a long time for that money to be deployed. Part of the effort here with releasing some of this bottom out is so that the private sector can act faster. Oysters are the only crop where the government will let you come in, harvest the land, and then when you leave, the government is responsible to prepare the field, plant the seed, irrigate the crop, and allow you to come back and harvest it again. It's just not sustainable. These harvest numbers show that. This bill is an effort to try to address that. The private sector can do it faster, period. And at the end of the day, having the resource healthy is good for all of us, not just for the commercial production of oysters. And the last handout that I shared with you, I think it's the last one, was this oyster reef assessment for the Western Sound. But the important thing to point out there is that the blue shaded areas on the Pass Marianne Reef and on the Pass Christiane Reef, those blue shaded areas will remain public even after this bill goes into effect. So the idea that no one will be able to harvest oysters off of Pass Christiane is a mischaracterization. There will still remain portions of the reefs that will remain public. That's a brief explanation of what the bill does and the background of how we got to this point. I'm happy to answer any questions.
If I may, really quick, and this is not any questions, but I think we're getting totally off topic. And we, as the city, we're not at the state level. And respectfully to Senator Thompson, we appreciate all your hard work. But what's germane to the subject tonight is that harbor out there. That is a fiduciary responsibility that we share with the citizens. And this, under all circumstances, affects our harbor. We don't want to relitigate that case respectfully. Senator Thompson, you're well versed, and I'm a low-level guy, all of it, so we appreciate the concern. But what is at stake here is our harbor. And the reason why this is on here is I'm not an attorney. I didn't write this, but it is in support of the fishermen of Pass Christiane, in support of our harbor. So if it has to be rewritten, it would have to go to our legal department. But I want to express something really quick. There's a reason why I say this, why it affects our harbor. Because fishermen are already telling us that if this happens, there's a problem with paying their lease. If they cannot pay their lease, it affects you, the citizen, because that harbor belongs to you. And let me explain to you how that affects you. It becomes a budget shortfall. You, the citizen, are on the hook for that, because we cannot make up the difference. And that is what's germane to this. We understand respectfully what Senator Thompson's saying. We're not in competition with that. This is our lane, which is the municipality. It affects our business. It affects you, the citizen, because it's your money that it is affecting. And I want to make that perfectly clear. If we need to rewrite this in legal terms, that would be the legal department with Mr. Simpson. However, tonight, if you read the language, it specifically states we are in support of the Pass Christiane fishermen. Again, I don't know how many times I have to say this, but folks, if this happens, which it is going to happen, and I'm not in competition, again, respectfully, with Senator Thompson, it's already law. Your taxes will rise because there is a budget shortfall, meaning we can't connect that. Here's the money that it comes in, and now it's all the way to here. It's out the door. You, the citizen, will be on the hook. It affects you, and that's what's germane to this resolution. That is the only thing that it's germane to. It's not germane to state law. That is not what we're asking for tonight. Resolution to be in support of the Pasquashan fishermen and in support of our harbor. That is what we're asking for. Mr. Simpson, would you like to respond?
No, that's how it's written, that's what it says that you want to written.
Can we strike that it says, City of Pasquashan, Mississippi expressing strong opposition to the proposed leasing of public oyster reefs in Mississippi? And just say we're in support of commercial fishermen? And then, how many oyster boats do we have in the harbor?
James, would you like to
How much
respond?
revenue are we looking at
Right
losing?
now, I think there's only about 4 or 5, I have to see, but I will say this, when we did have a small oyster season, the end of last year, beginning of this year, we had plenty of boats coming in. We had, more that wanted to come in, but it was only open for a few weeks here and shut down. So I think what Alderman Kimball did say, if this happens, we are gonna shut down the oyster fishermen, and it is gonna hurt our harbor.
Wouldn't Crystal Seas have boats? Crystal Seas, a local vendor who'll be going after these leases.
They do, they have 2 boats.
All right, so those 2 boats would stay in the harbor, and the boats coming in, those aren't Pasquashan boats, they're out-of-state boats, right?
Well, Mr. Livens, he has 3 boats.
Okay.
4 boats. Yep. They all have boats.
So if we're talking, with the boats, it's 50-foot slip, $4,000 a slip, right? Something like
It
that.
goes off the size of the boat or size of the slip, whatever's greater,
Yeah.
depending on what slip they're in.
How many commercial vessels are in the harbor currently? What's the percentage?
Right now, we have what, 39, and it's shrinking. I mean, right now, that there is no shrimp out there. I mean, y'all are seeing it, you're not getting any shrimp, Mr. Goshen. So, I mean, the boats aren't moving, and I think this would just be a negative impact if we did this to all commercial.
What did it do to Louisiana?
Excuse me?
When Louisiana did their reefs, leased them out, what did it do to them?
I'm not familiar with that.
And again,
So-
we're not here to relitigate the case. What is strictly germane to this resolution is you, the Pasquashan citizens, your harbor, and how it affects the funding of that harbor. And that's what's germane to the resolution. I want everyone to understand that we're not here to relitigate any legislation at the state level. That's not our lane. We're the municipal area.
I have one question. In these areas where you got marked in blue is the private reefs, and then what's in gray is what's leased. The people that,
It's the opposite, right?
Opposite.
State-
Oh, is it?
State-owned
Blue
reefs.
would be
the leases.
the public.
That's what I thought. The blue is public and gray is what's leased, like
No, the
St.
blue
Stanley.
is state.
Pardon?
State-owned reefs is the blue.
Okay. State-owned reefs. So the reefs, though, that, it doesn't really matter. What the question is really is the reefs that are not leased, are the people that leased still, because it's public, still allowed to fish those reefs also? Or?
I'm not that in detail in the regs on how that's going to be promulgated by the department.
I
but
see.
There are certainly, I think it'd be 4,000 to 5,000 acres that would remain public, including the immediate Pasquashan Reef and the Marion Reef.
I see.
Or portions, significant portions of it.
Okay. Yes, Mariah? What?
Is the state going to support the private enterprise? We talked about, laying
What's
the
the top
eggs
right
as opposed to public?
No, the state efforts would remain focused on the public reefs.
As opposed to the private?
Right, to be on the private lessors to promulgate on their reefs. And those obligations are in the lease terms under the legislation.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted the resolution uses some fairly strong language. It seems to me to be keyed directly to be interjected into a pending lawsuit. I don't know that that's the purview of the city, or if that's the city's intent, but when I read things like when I read portions of the bill, or the resolution rather, strongly opposing the bill and things like that, I thought it was appropriate to bring it to the board's attention on the background of that bill and how we got here.
Okay. Mr. Simpson, do you have anything that looks, that,
I've prepared the resolution as you guys are asking. I think a lot of what Mike says is right.
Uh-huh.
I don't understand how, and I'm not in the oyster business, my family was, I'm not in the oyster business. If the private lessors are gonna put the money in to do all these things with the reef, I don't know where they're gonna get that from, unless it's out of the pockets of local fishermen. I mean, I just don't know how else you do it.
Okay.
And so it's much more complicated than you think. There's a lot of, and Mike's right, I don't know if the state keeps, planting the field, but the state does a lot of things, guys. The state's, when I was in the legislature, I used to talk about Memorial Stadium in Jackson. It loses money every single year, doesn't make a cent, and it's rarely used, but it's something we want.
Yeah.
And it's something we spend money on, it's something we have. You've got War Memorial Park, I don't know if it makes money or not, but
No,
you spend whatever you got.
it's just
So
part of the city, yes, sir.
I'm a scribe, I'm not a listed man, not an officer. You guys make this decision, I just write down what you suggest.
Okay, well, since we're discussing this, is any other discussion that y'all would like to talk about? Go ahead.
Will be recognized?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Ryan Bradley. I'm a fifth-generation commercial fisherman. I grew up right here in this harbor working with my grandfather. I'm also the executive director of an organization called Mississippi Commercial Fisheries United. And this issue is near and dear to my heart, as well as many other fishermen. Some are here today. Our oyster reefs are recovering. There's a lot for the city of Pasco Shan to be proud about. Just off of your shores right here lies millions and millions of dollars right now, just waiting to be harvested. With all due respect to Mr. Thompson, I think we've had a pretty egregious misrepresentation of the status of our reefs. He would have you to believe that there's no oysters out there right now, that the reefs aren't recovering, that we must abandon decades of public policy and public management to go with this private mode of managing our resource. I would say that a lot of those statements are simply not true, and a lot of speculation that private interest will somehow magically do a better job with these oyster reefs. At the heart of the issue is the public's right to hunt and fish. And while Senator Thompson might enjoy a lot of discretionary powers in the legislature, he is confined by the state constitution. And the state constitution has a provision relating to the right to hunt and fish. And that was an amendment, a constitutional amendment, passed by the state legislature in 2012, adopted by the people in 2014 by 88% of the popular vote. Okay, and that constitutional amendment for the right to hunt and fish grants the right of all residents in the state of Mississippi to hunt and fish, and it explicitly states that public hunting and fishing shall be the preferred means of controlling and managing wildlife. Okay, and it should be the city of Pasco Shan's preferred means is maintaining public access to these waters that create so much economic activity for the city of Pasco Shan. It's critical to the cultural and heritage, the very fabric of our residents here in DNA in Pasco Shan for the oysters. So with that being said, there's a lot to be proud of here in Pasco Shan. The oysters are coming back. All we have to do is allow our public fishermen to continue to harvest the way that they've been doing, and we're going to see more activity in your harbors. You're going to see more stalls being rented. What we see with private leasing is always consolidation. Private management schemes are not new to the world of fisheries. I work on fisheries management at the federal level all around the country, and these privatization schemes always lead to consolidation. And that is what you will see in this city is less commercial fishing boats. And this is not just about commercial fishing. This is recreational and commercial fishing. It is both. The recreational ability to tong oysters will be impacted with these leases as well as the ability to recreational fish on these private leases. And that is a concern that every one of you should have as well. And I'll
Can you
be glad-
explain that? Because when I go to Louisiana Marsh, I fish on those oyster leases all the time.
Mhm.
Why can I not fish on a lease? Is it in their lease that I have to stay away? If I go to Myrtle Grove and I fish for redfish, I can't go on certain lands. But, how can I be told I can't fish on these leased bottoms?
The laws as enacted by the state legislature are ambiguous and vague, and that will lead.
So your interpretation is I can't fish there?
Well-
And it's going to be settled in the court at some point, right?
The leaseholders have ultimate control over the water bottoms. If they're working those water bottoms and you're trying to fish, I think the leasee is going to take precedent over.
So when I go to Louisiana Marsh and I fish there,
It's hard to
For
compare
a long
Louisiana
while,
to
that-
Mississippi because their state laws are drastically different.
well, it's in Polianic code and I got all that. But you're telling me, it's your opinion, that these leased bottoms, I won't be able to go fish Cabbage Reef anymore?
Cabbage Reef is Louisiana state water, sir.
Oh, sorry. No, Telegraph, past Mary Ann.
It could be a point of contention, absolutely. What I'm saying is that recreational and commercial fishing is important to the city of Pass Christian. Standing with solid support for our commercial fishermen is what we believe in the absolute best interest of the city and at the heart of public interest. And what we have is a public management model that is working. It has worked over a history of time. When we look back at all the many disasters we've had, our oyster reefs have always recovered. And they've recovered with less monetary input than what the state has been putting into recently. And as a matter of fact, the state, the DMR, has not put any resources into these reefs right outside of Pass Christian in the past 2 years. But despite that lack of investment, the oyster reefs are thriving and will continue to thrive, barring we don't have any extreme natural disasters. So with that, I'll yield. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Questions?
I wouldn't disagree with him for anything, but when I read some of that stuff, the Constitution guarantees hunting and fishing. And when I read that stuff, when I interpreted it to be, fishing is maybe harvesting trout or redfish or something. I think, when I say hunting and fishing, I think harvesting oysters is fishing within the constitutional context. So I don't know that it would stop you from fishing for trout or redfish or finding something. It would stop you from harvesting oysters in those places. And I think that's what it means. Now, I could be wrong. I haven't studied it. I have not spent your money and my time to read it, but that's what I think.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Thank you. Okay.
So Alderman Dreyfus, if we call the vote, would you like to make any amendments to this, to where we pass it, kind of like we did with the lease prior to this?
Supporting locals, absolutely. One thing I'm confused about, though, is that Crystal Seas will be going after some of these